Goa. My name is Oroyedeka in Mohawk, Jonathan Miracle in English. I grew up in a village called Akwesasne, Mohawk Territory, among the Mohawk people of that community, and my father was full-blooded Mohawk. My mother was English, Scottish, and Welsh. My skin, my eyes, and the fact that my father was a preacher didn't set well with the local native kids. Really, what happened was I began to hate my skin and my eyes. My dad contacted his denomination and said, "We can't stay here. My son is going through a really, really hard time." And so we moved to New Hampshire, to a place called Canaan, New Hampshire, of all places, right? So we go to Canaan, New Hampshire. Dad's the pastor there. And I met with the guidance counselor, and he said, "We're going to do everything we can to get you back on track." And it was pretty good. I mean, I managed to get decent grades, average grades, passed. There always seemed that I attracted bullies, though. Always attracted bullies. So I always had to be looking out for myself, you know. So that was like my early years in growing up. So I decided early on that I was going to go to California and I was going to become a rock star. Before I left Canada to go to California, my father said to me, "When your back's against the wall and you have nowhere to turn," he said, "call out on Jesus." I can remember looking down at my dad and I said, "I don't need Jesus." You know, I was so arrogant. I got caught up in the drugs and the booze and the girls and all those things. But I was beginning to become lonely, like really deeply lonely. It just kept getting worse and worse. I felt like I was really losing my grip, and it became overwhelming to me. I would run down this one street, these transport trucks would go flying by me real fast. And I just thought, this is gonna be so easy. You know, I can just end it all. And so I went inside into my apartment and I decided that I could probably write the best blues song ever because I felt so terrible. And my death could make it really something. Started to write the words, and I can remember singing it, playing it, and then it made me feel worse. And I took the paper and I crumpled it up and I threw it in the garbage. I remembered what my dad said to me. And I said, Jesus, help me. And I sat there and I was crying. And the phone rang. And it was my dad. He said, "Son, I'm coming to see you." I said, "Don't." I said, "Fly me to to Florida, and I'll come be with you and Mom." So he did. He switched his ticket. But when I got to Florida, Mom and Dad picked me up at the airport and they took me right to Christian church meetings. I did not like Christianity. And I'm like coming right off of a place where I'm a drug abusing, drinking guy and being taken to a crusade. And my dad's best friend was an Interpol police officer. He came with Mom and Dad and I to this crusade. He grabs me by the arm and he walks me up the aisle. And we get to the front and I'm standing there and they do the sinner's prayer and everything. I was so angry. I said, "I can't believe you guys did this to me." I said, you hijacked me." They felt so terrible. So my mom, all that week, she did everything she could to try and make it up to me. She cooked me all my favorite food. But on Sunday morning, they were just leaving to go to church and they weren't bothering me. But she goes, "I just wondered if you might want to come with us." And I'll tell you what, all the love that she poured into me that week. So I looked at her and I said, "Mom, I'll come. I know that you want me to come." We drove to the church and we pulled into the parking lot. They got up and they just went into the church. He said, "Come in when you're ready." So I sat there and literally the devil and the angel were on my shoulder. And I thought I should go in. And the devil would say, "You don't want to go in there. This is a bunch of hypocrites." And, said all these things to try and stop me. And finally I got up and I walked in and there was this little old lady. I stepped in the door and she said, "Oh, welcome to our church." She says, "I love you." And I said, "Why do you love me?" She goes, "'Cause Jesus told me to." A feeling came over me like nothing I ever felt before. And I felt this love, I guess I can say now I felt it was love. It just floored me, but it took all the loneliness, the anger, and all those things just seemed to just be gone. And I walked inside and sat in the back of the church and just felt this presence. That was the true beginning. Nobody read Romans 10:9 and 10 to me. Nobody made me quote any scriptures or say a sinner's prayer. I had to learn about all that. Jesus touched me by his love through this little old lady. And that's why I believe that God is sovereign. I went back to Canada and I just sought God, read my Bible, went to church. And this pastor, when I went in, it was just like, this is the place you're supposed to be. This is a pastor who is like David of the Psalms, loved God with all of his heart, a man seeking God. And I thought, that's the one I want to be my mentor. Took me out for a drive and said to me one day, you know, you've got to give up your Mohawk heritage in order to have Jesus. That was really hard to understand, but I trusted him because he was the person I felt God put in charge over me. And so I turned away from my Mohawk heritage, and that was really heartbreaking for my father. I took my dad to task, and my dad didn't argue with me or anything. He said, when I gave my heart to Jesus, he said, I didn't quit being a Mohawk. He said, I became a better Mohawk. And I didn't understand yet. And so I pursued my Jesus within the non-native context for 10 years. I felt I was in a good place until I get a call from Elijah Harper's office, who was one of the first Native members of Parliament. When he became a part of Parliament, he saw the terrible struggle of First Nations people all across Canada. And so he had this vision to have a sacred assembly. And they called me and said, we want you to come. And Elijah Harper is requesting that you come, play your drum, and sing Amazing Grace in Mohawk. I had to make a decision what was most important to me, my relationship with my family at church, or who I was as a person, as a Mohawk, who was being asked by other Native people to help them to bring healing to our people. And so I said yes, knowing full well that my non-Native friends in church may reject me. Towards the end of my dad's life, he gave me a mandate, and he said, you need to go to our people and you need to tell them Jesus died to set them free. And it says in Revelations 5:9, it says, sing a new song, for Jesus died for every tribe, every tongue, every people, and every nation. You know, and there's no prerequisites. There's no cultural conversion that God is asking for there. That the drums that I make out of buffalo hide, moose hide, elk hide. I make them out of good cedar that's all from God's earth. This instrument is the subject of me. It's my drum. And when I play that drum, I play it from the heart of Christ. The truth is, it's not about the instrument. It's about the heart of the musician. Jesus was a gift that is free. We can't do anything to earn what Jesus died for. What we can do is accept his love, accept his salvation into our lives. I'm Jonathan Miracle, and this is my story.